When Barack Obama ran for president in 2008, no major U.S. corporation did more to finance his campaign than Goldman Sachs. This election, none has done more to help defeat him. Wall Street Journal's Liz Rappaport has the story of Goldman's political reversal. Liz, good morning.
Good morning.
Now, Goldman used to be a very reliable Democratic donor, correct?
Correct. For the last few decades, they gave primarily to Democratic presidential candidates and candidates of other offices, mostly to Democrats. They're very much kind of a Democrat firm.
And yet this political season, the donations going to the Romney campaign from Goldman far surpass what they're giving to the Obama campaign, correct?
Yes, it's been like a huge reversal. I mean, in the past where 75% of the money's gone to the Democrat candidate, this time around 75% of all the collected totals so far have gone to Romney. And
why is that? What really irks the banks so much?
It's kind of a combination of, the onslaught of financial regulation and their concerns that their business is, really under siege in terms of being able to be profitable and, provide returns for their shareholders. But also, they feel very personally attacked and somewhat betrayed by the Obama administration, which they had supported so aggressively in 2008. They thought they would be consulted on a lot of, the reforms. This is the biggest financial overhaul in a century or whatever, or close to that. So they thought their voices weren't heard.
Did they really want to be consulted on these reforms? Did they just not want to? They wanted business as usual. They were against the Volcker rule, correct? I mean,
I think that's a little bit of a
what would they have been willing to put up with?
Well, I think they would have been willing to put up with, a Volcker rule or a, derivatives legislation and derivatives, restrictions. But they did want to be consulted. I think even some of the most senior executives at Goldman that I talked to acknowledge that things got out of control before the crisis hit. So they don't want crises. They don't want their competitors going under. They don't want to go under or be close to going under themselves. So I actually think that what they would say, at least, and my reporting has found, is that they just wanted to. They used to have an open door back and forth. People on the House Financial Services Committee would come to Goldman and they would go to D.C. and it sort of shut down when the Obama administration came in. So that's what they're pissed about.
What's interesting, this isn't unique to to Goldman Sachs, really. If we look at a list of top contributors, say employees of, this is a chart we have. This is from OpenSecrets.org, and this is not the organizations themselves, but the employees of those organizations. And actually, if you look at the top 8 for the Romney campaign, we're looking at Goldman, Bank of America, J.P. Morgan, Morgan Stanley, and after that, it's Credit Suisse, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, and Barclays. Now, if we flip over to President Obama, his top donors, University of California, Microsoft, Google, Harvard, the United States government. After that, Deloitte, the accounting firm, DLA Piper, and Stanford.
Right.
So you do see a big...
Right, different cultures, different worlds that they're appealing to, and I think another thing for Goldman that's an interesting point is that they're fighting sort of against an incumbent, which is a rare thing for, and not just Goldman, all the companies you mentioned, which is a rare thing to do, which I think speaks to their sense that it kind of couldn't get worse in terms of the relationship between Washington and Wall Street. So, Obama could very well win, as we know. It's a very close race. And if he does, I kept asking them, well, what if he wins? Aren't you worried they'll be even harder on you guys? And the answer was kind of like, it can't get really that much worse than it already is.
Now, what are they really
done?
What are they looking for from a Romney administration potentially?
Well, I think that, to be totally honest, I think they're looking partially for some rollback of some of the Dodd-Frank legislation. I think they're looking for tax relief for U.S. corporations, maybe repatriating money back to the U.S. There's all this conversation about how corporate CEOs and CFOs are very cautious in doing deals or making acquisitions or doing anything but just sort of hoarding their cash until they find out whether what their tax situation is going to be. So things like that sound small, and then just sort of a closer relationship going forward.
Okay. Now, last, I just have to ask. I mean, this is a bank, remember, that was levered, I think, around 30-to-1, something like that in 2007. Yeah. And along with pretty much most of the financial industry, if it hadn't been for stupendous intervention from the Fed to prop up the asset side of their balance sheet, not to mention rescues from the Treasury and FDIC, which
yeah.
made Goldman and others explicit. They were explicitly backed by the government when
right.
FDIC backed their debt. I mean, they have to acknowledge that some of these reforms are absolutely necessary, don't they?
Oh, definitely. I think they do. I mean, they initially protested they didn't need the TARP money, but then, frankly, I think if you talk to people, they really, in the end, were grateful for that TARP money. And becoming a bank holding company at first, they really resented that, and sometimes, some days, I think they still do. But to be honest, that you're right. You're absolutely right. It saved them. It kept their management intact. They didn't decide to buy another company or be bought. It allowed them to proceed as the company that they are. So, so banking is different now. So you're right. They have to deal with that. And I think that they do recognize that the reforms are necessary. They just felt it was also a personal attack situation. It was like the fat cat comment and the jokes about Goldman being sort of greedy,
because there's no truth at all to that.
No.
None at all. Liz, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Fascinating story
Sure.
on page A1 of the Journal, so be sure to read it.